Hey, Dr. Dan here. We are going to continue our tutorial series setting up a networked virtual reality player. The earlier series set up a virtual reality player that had separate cameras moving independently with hands moving independently. And in this tutorial, we're going to take it one step further and set up some animations. So here's where we were last time. We have a networked player with a local player. I think I called it local player control in the last one, script, a network transform for the hands. And the only thing I've done is removed what was a body from this script. And we have an OVR camera rig. So let's take a look at that network script and just review real quick what we set up. So the goals for this tutorial are to enable animation. So we're going to need a reference in this script to actually, we don't even need it to be public. We can make it private. Animator. Well, maybe we should make it public. Anim, and we're going to get component in children because we're going to nest this animator down a level. So what we're going to do is animate over a network. And other than that, in this script, what we have is if we're not the local player, we destroy the cam. We reset the tags for main camera if we need to in update, and if we are the local player, we get our input from input tracking XR from Unity directly through the OVR right hand and the Oculus left hand. Alright, so let's get started. The other thing I want to do in this tutorial is add grabbing. So we can add that right now. So I want these capsule colliders now to, let's scale them down a bit more. So they are just normal capsule colliders. But now I'm going to turn them on and make them triggers. And I'm going to add a OVR grabber to that script, which is going to add a rigid body that I'm going to take gravity off of. And then I'll add it over here as well, OVR grabber. And again, I'll turn off gravity. The OVR grabber script takes some parameters, so we're going to drag the right hand transform over to grab volumes to grab volumes. I only need it once actually. And we'll set that controller to right touch. And the parent transform we can set to player network. Do the same thing for left hand. Drag it to grip transform, grab volumes, and that's it. The parent transform, and this will be left touch. Alright, let's apply that. And now this cube we have kind of sitting in the middle has a box collider, so let's just add a OVR grabbable to that cube. And that's all we need to start grabbing things. Alright, so next we're going to add some animations. So I'm not going to cover how to do animations in this tutorial. I'm just going to import some, and these are free animations I got, I think, from All-Star Characters. But you can do this with any animations you want. So I'm going to just import the ones that I already have to get some easy animations to work with. So let's assets, import package, custom package. Let's see where I put my animations. Unity, Alright, so I'm going to import a whole bunch of animations here. And let's see. Oh, there we go. So I've already got a nice set of animations here, and I'm dragging that into my player network. I'm going to go ahead and remove this. We don't need a forward direction, it's just an empty transform. Alright, so this animator has a controller, which is this. The controller has two states, one that's idle and the other that's running in place. I'm just demonstrating animating over a network, so we're not going to get fancy with the states. But you'll see the condition on moving from idle to running in place is called idling, and when it's set to false, we run in place. When it's set to true, we go back to idling. So that's what we're going to network, is just that transition once we have a link to the animator. Okay. And remember, we're destroying the OVR camera rig if we're not the local player, so we're going to deal directly with the animator. So I'm going to add another network transform child, just to be safe, and drag this animator over. Now here, oh, I've already set this up with some stuff, so I'm going to, this should not have a network transform, it's just supposed to be an animator. You can see I've set this up before, but so I just want on this, I don't want a rigid body either, and I don't want a capsule collider. So I just have an animator here, and then inside I have a bunch of animation transform elements with various mesh settings and animations that go along with that. So the only thing of interest to us is this animator. And what we want to do is just add a component, and let's call this local, well, animation control. We can even do local. This is going to be another networked behavior. Let's deal with that. Just a script I imported. Alright, let's go to local player. So we have this animator, we get a reference to it here. Alright. So if we're the local player, let's detect when we want to animate. So that's when we get a value for this, for a primary axis that is either that is not 0 for either of those axes. Handle animations. So we'll say if over input get primary thumbstick x is not equal 0. Or if either of those don't equal 0, we want to be running. So set animation to running over the server, right? So we want somehow to let our clients know that we're in running. We want all clients that are joined to the server to see us as running if that happens. And then we can do else set animations to idle over the server. Alright, we'll leave those blank for now. Okay, so in this new script that we've written, we are going to handle being able to send animations over the server. So let's scroll down here, and our local animations control, that's going to be a network behavior. So I want to use Unity Engine.networking and make this a network behavior. All right, and so let's set up some public objects here. So first, let's have a animator. We'll need to keep track of our animations. We can make that public. And let's have a public game object array for animation body parts. So I'll show you why. So the reason why is we can put material that makes us like invisible-ish. So we'll set an alpha like level high on that material, and then what we can do is we can paint all the meshes that we just saw in the animator here. All these meshes in here with that material. So you can see right now it has that. If we're the local player, so we're invisible to ourselves, other people see us as a solid object. So that's the idea there. Okay, and we want a sync var with a hook. Oops. So we're going to sync changes to this to onAnimationStateChange, to a method called onAnimationStateChange, and this is just going to be a string anim state. Okay. So let's set the initial state to idle, and then in start, let's say anim equals get component and children animator. So we have a reference to our animator. And once we do, we can anim set bool. And the bool we want to set is idle. And we want to set it to true initially. The other thing we want to do in start is if we're not the local player, well, if we are the local player, that's right, then we can say animation body parts, animation dot get let's see, game on, oh, for each G in animation body parts, alright, so we have a game object now. So let's do for each skinned mesh renderer M in G dot get components in children actually let's just do a array here, skinned mesh renderer array equals G dot get components and children, skinned mesh renderer, and then we can say for each Oh, we need a name for this. M for each scanned mesh render M mat in mat rend in M. Now we just want to set M dot material mat rend dot material equals whatever we're making our invisible material, and then we can grab any renderers too, just to be safe. G.get children renderer and for each renderer R in rend in R dot material rend dot material equals invisible. All right. So if we are the local player, we'll make ourselves invisible. All right. Before we do anything with update, let's get that working. So to get it to compile, we need to write this function here. So void on animation state change. Here we'll say if we are the local player, then we want to return. Otherwise, let's call a method which we'll write called update animation. And we'll pass on a string, animation string. We'll make that a parameter of onAnimationState. So void update animation string is going to here say if our animation, if anim state equals a string, we'll return. Otherwise, we'll set our anim state to this new string, and we'll say if anim state equals idle, then we want to update this animation state over the network. So call command update animation if anim state equals run. Actually, no, we just want to set the animation here. We're calling this server from our controller class. So if anim state equals idle, then we want to set anim.set bool. Nope, set bool to, and the bool's name is idle to true. And otherwise, we'll anim.set bool idle to false. And finally, we need a network command. So that's something called by the client. And run on the server. what we'll do here is just set our anim state to a string and update our animation to a string. Oh, actually, in update animation, we do that anyway. So that's all we need to do. Now, one last thing. Over in our local player controls, now we can call get component local player local animations control dot cn. Oh, we need to make that public. Call it dot command update animations, and we're going to pass in the string. So this is when we get input, so we're going to pass in the string run. Otherwise, we will pass in the string idle. And that is it. So now back in Unity, we're getting a failure to generate network code. That's never good. Let's clear that. Alright, so back in Unity, we need to make a few tweaks here. So our player needs to know about the animation body parts here. So we're just going to put that there. Actually, let's make sure we get all of them. So let's lock that, and well, yeah, let's get all of them here. Okay, and then we need to make a material, so let's create a material, call it whatever, and this material, let's unlock this, is going to be like super, I don't know. The important part is we set the alpha down to like 14 or something, and then let's let our player know. We're going to drag that link over to material here. So invisible goes there, and let's save. So we don't have a link to the animator yet, but that's okay, we get that by component. And alright, let's apply that, delete that from our scene. We're probably going to have to move this down a bit. Let me reset the animations transform and set it to like -1, and it looks like it's going to be about there. So we can pull this plane up a bit. Let's see where our spawn point is. It's right there. Alright, so we're going to be floating above the plane. That's okay. Alright, so we'll apply that. Let's delete this from the scene, and let's test it out locally. Alright, we have no rigid body attached to cube. Ah, right. So remember we made that cube grabbable? We need to have a rigid body on any grabbable object. So let's add component rigid body. And I'm going to make this kinematic so it kind of stays in position after we move it around, just so we can see where we're moving it to. Alright. So there I am. I'm invisible because I'm the local player. I'll go into VR here, and let's make sure we still have our hands. We do. Alright. So now if I kind of move around and use my hands, I should be able to interact with the sphere. Not yet. Oh, there we go. So as you can see, I can kind of move it around, grab it, and it is vibrating very rapidly with my wrist. So we'd want to tweak the network transform rate of that, but we can at least move it. You also notice my animations are not working, so let's see what's going on with that. Alright, so I'm getting parameter idle does not exist, but it does. Okay. So let's see why it doesn't think idle exists. This is in our start, where we say get component and children equals component and children animator. Alright. So let's drag our network player back. There's our animator, and there's our transition. Let's switch over to parameters. Our transition is called idling. Okay, so instead of modifying that everywhere in code, I'm just going to change it right here to idle. Save that. Alright, let's run this again, and there we go. Alright, so now you can kind of see in the shadow at least I'm running around, and we can set the alpha, make this less visible. Oh, and there is my other, because I left it in the scene. You can see that this animator, the hands are moving with me because it's considering us both local players, but when we network it, we shouldn't have that problem. Alright, so let's apply this. And I'm actually going to just set that material alpha. I'm going to make this even lighter, just a light color. There's a very high alpha, very low alpha. Or do we want high? I think we want low. Let's see. Is this invisible? Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, we'll stick with that. Anyway, so that should all be working. Let's delete this from the scene, save it, file, build settings, and build. Save that, and I will let that run. Alright, and I'm going to switch now to webcam view. Oh, it's not working. Alright, you'll have to trust me. My webcam is down. But what I'll do now is start networking on a different computer, just like in the last tutorial. So I have a different computer set up, hardware set up with Oculus and everything, and we're just going to network this and test it out. So I'll run this over here on the other computer. And putting on that. I'm starting that file. Builds right now. And I'll put the other computer's IP in here. And wait for the host to kick in. There it goes. All right. So let me set up this network server. server on the other computer real quick. Okay. Okay, so all is well over there. I have the right kind of animation. Now, I will join on this computer. There I am, and you can see I'm idling along with the other player. And as I move, we're not getting any movement. Okay. So that's kind of interesting. The server doesn't get movement. We'll fix that in just a second. Let's see. The client doesn't get any movement. Let's see if we can move around on the server. We are getting animations on the server. So we just need to set the client's animation to local when we're moving. So you can see the animations are off, but they're working on that end, just not on the client's end. And okay, cool. So let's fix that. First, let's test the grabbing. So, oops. Back up here and get within my parameters. There we go. Let's just move this around to over here. And I'm just going to check that that did in fact get moved to a different location on the other computer. And did not. Okay, so we have to fix that as well. Cool, lots for us to debug. This is why we test. Okay. So, first thing is the cube isn't moving around on both the client and the server because it needs a network transform. Once it has that, it will be able to move in both places. And then for our animations, when we animate here, one thing we're not doing is if we're the client, if we're the local player, we're not animating. So we're sending it over the server, but we're not telling ourselves to animate. So we have a reference to our anim here in local player controls. So set bool idle to true. Oh, to false, right? If we're running, that is false. Otherwise, anim dot set bool idle to true. Okay. And let's test this out. So we want a file. Did I save that? Save? I did. So we want a file, and let's build it again. When that's built, good. We'll start it on the other computer, which takes a moment. And while it's starting on the other computer, we can run it over here and start typing the IP in. I'm running on the other computer now. And we want to host on the other computer. It is running smoothly. Cool. Where are my controls? Yeah. Alright, so I can run around. I'm going to move over to the box that is grabbable here on the other computer. And let's join as a client here. Alright, and I'll go into virtual reality now on this computer. Oh, dot. Got the IP wrong. There we go. Alright. That's not right. I need to keep in virtual reality on the other computer. Let me just fix that. There we go. And we will connect again. Alright, so there I am, and there's the other player. We're both kind of floating above the ground. That's something that's easily fixed. You'll see my animations are running, the other players are not, and if I move back behind my barrier, I can perhaps grab this cube and move it around a bit. So I'll move it there, make it rotating. Okay. Cool, and let's just double check that the other player, when they move, we see them move and we do not move. So there's the other player's hand, and you can see I'm moving around just fine. Cool. And my hand is moving without the other hand moving. Cool, that is great. So positioning of the hands, the animations, sync rate, all that can be tweaked from this basic setup. But that is, in a nutshell, how to set up animations over a server, and how to sync them so that the animations are different for different players, how to make the appearance different for different players, and how to have interactivity in a virtual reality multiplayer game with grabbable objects. You can easily see where you can add to this. In the next series, we'll expand on this and add some, so the next part of the series will add some, the ability to spawn some objects into the server, so some objects that you can also interact with. That's a fairly easy thing to do. And finally we'll go into setting up network lobby rooms, so you wait for other players to join and you don't have to type in the IP. The game and the matchmaking service that will implement just knows that another computer is running an instance and finds the room. So we'll set all that up in the next tutorial. That's all. Thanks for watching. See you next time.